Okay, so here we are under the hood of our 2022 F150. We're going to be installing the new Pulsar XT inline module that adds power and has a smartphone app for feature control. This is part number 12451, and it works in the 2021 through 2023 Ford F150, whether you have the 2.7 liter Ecoboost or the 3.5 liter Ecoboost. This also works in the Raptor and some of the limited models that have the high output 3.5 liter. It does not currently support the Power Boost models, however. So to start with this installation, we've got to install the wiring harness and plug into a couple of sensors under the hood. We've got to tap our battery for power, and then we've got to run into the cab to get access to our OBD2 port and our throttle pedal sensors so that we can work with the throttle boost feature. So obviously we have our Pulsar XT module. We're going to set that aside. That will go in the cab here in just a little bit. And then you'll find the harness is in two sections when you open up that package. There's one that's the underhood section, and then we have the in-cab section, which has the module and the OBD2 port on. So we'll install those in just a little bit. We're going to start here under the hood. So the first step of any of our installations is going to be disconnecting our negative battery terminal so that we can make sure that we're not getting any power or voltage going through the vehicle. So we're going to use a 10 millimeter to loosen up that nut here on that battery post, and we're going to remove that, make sure that it's moved off to the side so we don't get any connection or voltage through the battery into the vehicle itself. With that part done, the next step is going to be removing this engine cover. Again, this install is on the 3.5 liter. This is actually a tremor truck that we're working on. Installation will be slightly different for the 2.7 liter, but it is similar enough that this one video will cover both the 2.7 and 3.5. So to remove this engine cover, there are two 10 millimeter nuts found inside these ports that are on this cover. So we just need to get in and remove those. We've got that same 10 millimeter socket from our battery that we loosened, and we just put an extension so we can reach. Okay, move over to the driver's side one. Since these pockets are pretty deep, it's hard to get down in there with your fingers to grab the nut that you've just removed, so you can just leave them down in there and just lift that cover straight up and then pull it forward, because you'll see that it's on a tabbed mount here on the back of the engine. And then once we have it off, we get access to those 10 millimeter nuts that we just loosened up. So we're going to set this engine cover aside. And now we have full access to the engine itself and the couple of sensors that we're going to need to tap. So the under hood engine harness in your kit is going to need to be run from this location of the firewall, because we need to run through the firewall into the cab for everything. So you can actually lay the harness out in that order. So our connectors, we've got one connector that's going to connect to our map sensor that's on the very back of the intake manifold, back against the firewall. That harness will come forward along the top of the engine, and we have a connector that will attach to our boost sensor that's on the front side of the engine, right in front of the throttle body. And then we have this power with the ring terminal. This is going to run over to the positive side of the battery. So we're going to just loosely route that cable where we need to. We're going to go ahead and start with the installation on those sensors. So we'll relocate the camera so you can get a better angle of those sensors we need to tap into. All right, so here we are right on top of the engine. This is the intake manifold on top of the motor. The sensor that we're going to tap is this map sensor that's right here on the back of that intake manifold. It's right under the cowl against the firewall. Now there's a white keeper on the top of that sensor that you'll need to put your thumbnail under and pull it backwards. It'll just clip straight back towards the firewall. Once that white keeper is disconnected from the main part of the connector, you can press down on it and it'll allow you to disconnect the sensor. Then we've got that new harness that came with our XT, and you'll see that we have two connectors on it here. One side is going to go into that factory sensor that we just unplugged. You'll hear it click, and then you need to close the keeper on the Pulsar XT harness. The other part of that harness will connect into the vehicle's harness that we disconnected from the original sensor. We'll only plug in one way, and you'll hear it click, and then there is, again, that keeper you need to close to make sure that it stays connected. With that part of the done on the map sensor, we're going to move forward along the front of the engine, and we'll reposition the camera to show you the boost sensor. All right, so this shows our boost sensor that we're going to tap into. Now this is right on the very front of the engine, right in front of the throttle body. So it's directly behind your coolant reservoir, which you can actually see here in the video. This is the coolant reservoir. Our engine is over this way. This is the sensor we're going to tap into. It has the same style keeper as that map sensor did. So you just need to place your thumbnail on that back part of that and click it backwards, and then you can press down on that white part to disconnect the sensor. So then we have our new XT harness that we're going to route right here. Again, we've got one end of our harness that will connect to the sensor, plug it in until it clicks, and then close our keeper to lock it in place. And then the other end will plug into the vehicle's harness. Again, it goes on one way. You'll hear it click when we click it together, and then we want to close that white keeper to keep it clicked. And then we're going to move over to our power wire over to the positive terminal on the battery. Here at the battery, we need to connect right here to the positive side. You'll see there is this stud on the back side of the battery terminal. We're going to route that wiring harness along our intake tube, and we're going to stuff it right up inside that red cover. And then we're going to use a 13 millimeter to remove this nut here on this stud. And then we're going to place that ring terminal right on top of there and put that nut back on. And snug it down. Those are all the connections we need to make under the hood, so we'll be moving into the cab for the next part of the installation. But we do want to mention that the kit does include some zip ties so that we can tie this new harness along the way, so it's tucked up out of the way where it won't get it along with anything hot or anything moving, so we don't have any chance of melting any of those wires or anything like that. So make sure you zip tie that up nice, and then you can put that engine cover back on, and we'll move into the cab. All right, so we need to pass our cable through the firewall. It's kind of hard to get this on film, but there is a big rubber grommet back here, right there on the firewall, that you'll be able to put a small slit in and pass that wire right through the cab at that location. This will be that green connector on the Pulsar XT harness. This is just a small square connector that's not too tough to pass through there once you get a slit made. All right, now we can move into the cab and pull that through, and we can make our connections at the OBD port with our module and the accelerator pedal. Okay, so now here we are under the dash of our F150. We need to make our connection at our throttle pedal. You'll find the sensor, the connector right here on the top side of the pedal. We need to release that keeper by pushing it up with our thumb, and then we can depress the tab to unplug the connector. The new Pulsar XT harness is going to go right back in that same spot. It's all direct plug and play connection. I want to make sure we hear it click and close the keeper that's on the top side. And then the other end of our Pulsar XT harness is obviously going to plug in to the engine side of our harness. Again, you'll hear it click, close the keeper we'll be able to route the cable up here under the dash. Again, we've got some zip ties so you can get that out of the way of any of the moving brake pedal or pedal assemblies, and then we'll move over to make our other connections here. Okay, so we've made our connection at the throttle pedal. We now need to make these last couple of connections with our in-cab harness. The green connector is obviously going to go to the wire that was run through the firewall, through that rubber grommet. This can only be plugged in one way, as you can see. I'm going to go ahead and make that connection. Make sure it's solid. And then we can route the short end right up to our OBD2 port that's right here above your foot. And then the last connection we're making here in the cab is with the Pulsar XT module itself. So this is, again, you'll want to make sure you put it together the correct orientation. It'll go together and it'll click, so you know that it's a secure connection and is nice and tight. Now on the F150, the nice little plastic kick panel here on the side makes a great place to kind of slip this module back inside and tuck it away. Again, we'll tuck all the wires away. But before we do that, we need to connect our Wi-Fi switch to this module. In order to do that, we need to reconnect our battery terminal so we can get power to the vehicle and turn the ignition on. So we're going to move over to reconnect our battery now. Obviously, this is a really easy step. We just need to reconnect our battery terminal. This is the final step of the actual installation itself. Get that back on and use our 10mm socket from before and tighten that back up. Make sure we got a good secure connection at the battery. Okay, now we can move into the cab and pair our Wi-Fi switch and then go through our app. Okay, we've moved back into the cab and we're going to work on pairing our Bluetooth switch with the module that we've just installed. So you'll find 3 batteries included in the kit, but we need to pop the back off of this switch, which is easily done just by placing your thumb on that back panel and it'll pop right off. You'll find where you can put the three batteries. I'm gonna just drop those in place here, like so. And then we can pop that cover back on. And it'll click and snap into place. Now you'll see that the LED lights will start ranging. So at this point, we need to make sure we turn our ignition on to power up our module. We're just gonna press the stop button on the dash. That's gonna power up our module. And the switch will be, see how it was scrolling? It stopped scrolling and now we're just lighting up one light for our power levels. So the switch is now paired. It's as easy as that. We can change those on the fly at any time just by pressing those up and down arrows. You can also change your power levels through the smartphone app, but the Wi-Fi, the Bluetooth switch makes it really easy because we don't have to do any hard wiring or mount anything on the dash. You don't have anything clunky sitting on your center console. So you can tuck this away, in your cup holder, put it up on the top on the dash. We do include some double-side Velcro so you could attach this to the dash somewhere if you'd like, or just set it wherever it's convenient for you. So at this point, we need to pair our app to the module since we have now got our switch paired. So the Pulsar XT app itself is downloaded in the App Store that you've got. That's Google, Android, or an iPhone. It's available with both stores. So we're going to open up the app first. Make sure we're within about a foot of the module the first time we try and pair and sync this app together. It's going to tell us that we have detected that this is the first time connecting to the module and that the app needs to check for module updates before continuing. This could take 15 minutes or more. Once you start the update, you will not be able to drive your vehicle until the update is complete. So we're going to go ahead and select continue to make sure we're up to date. Now this is just to make sure that the calibration in your module is our most current. Make sure that the app and everything is up to date as well. Obviously we ship this with our most current calibrations, but since we don't know how long this could sit on a dealer shelf or in a warehouse somewhere, we can't always guarantee that it's the most current when it comes to you. So we want to check and make sure that it's current. So you'll see that it connects to our update agent software, which is going to check to see that it's up to date. If you don't already have an update agent login, you'll be able to create an account with your email and put in a password. So this device has been checked. It is up to date. It shows us the serial number on our device and the part number is listed there, the SKU 12451, which is specific for the F-150. It tells us what our calibration is on. So we can go back, and now we're going to open up the actual app itself. Takes just a couple minutes this first time we connect. It's trying to see what features have been enabled or disabled. Obviously the first time you connect, none of this will be set up yet, but this is the main screen to our Pulsar XT app. So we'll kind of walk through that now. So the first tile is the power level tile. If you open that up, we can change the power levels. Now see, it's recognized that we left our Bluetooth switch in power level 4. But you can go through this and actually change the power levels right here on the app itself. If you have the app open, the nice thing with this power level setup on the app itself is these numbers here to the right. We can go in and set the pedal sensitivity for each one of those power levels. So we have settings from stock. Actually, we even have one that's in economy mode, which is less aggressive than stock. And then we have these levels above all the way up to our ludicrous setting, which is a really sensitive pedal. You barely have to give it any throttle input for this thing to jump right out from underneath you with that setting. Some guys like that, some guys don't. So we give you the ability to change that pedal setting in any one of those power levels. So if you like driving around on power level 5, but the setting 5 on the throttle control is too touchy, you want to turn it down, just as simple as setting it to a lower. It'll save that, and then once you exit this power level screen, it's going to save these as defaults. So when you're using the Bluetooth switch, it's going to remember the pedal settings in each power level. So we can go ahead and change that to whatever we want that fits your driving. The next setup is our tire size. This allows us to change our speedometer to read for larger tires. So if you've installed a lift kit, leveling kit, put a bigger set of wheels and tires on it, you'd be able to calibrate to speedo to read correctly based off the new tire size. The one thing to remember is that we need to put in a measured tire height. So if you've put 35, 12, 50, 20s on your truck, get a tape measure and measure that tire from the ground to the top. You'll find that a 35-inch tire is not actually 35 inches tall once it's mounted on the truck. Normally they're closer to like 33 3/4. So you can input that tire size right here. Tell it to update the tire size, and then your speedo will read correctly. This truck is still on the factory tire, so we're not going to make any changes here. We do have access to our TPMS system, so we can change our TPMS setting threshold of what PSI your light will come on the dash. So if you have installed aftermarket wheels and tires and run lower than factory PSI, you can change that, lower it, so you'll get that light at a lower PSI. You can also completely disable the TPMS system if you don't have TPMS sensors in your new wheels and tires. We have the auto start stop system, so we can disable the auto start stop. These trucks have a button on the dash, but you have to press that every time you start the engine, every key cycle. So with this, it's going to remember to just keep that auto start system disabled all the time. We have our honk warning. This is a feature that has been a high request for these newer vehicles. The vehicle will actually honk anytime you leave it running, but have the key fob in your pocket if you walk away. This will allow you to disable that, so it's not going to honk at you if you walk away from the vehicle running. We have our battery management system. This will actually allow you to disable the battery management system. The one thing to note, that if you have a 2023 model truck and you disable your auto start stop, it is also going to disable your battery management system. That's just a note because of the way the Ford ECM works on the 2023. Then with our diagnostics, we can read and clear diagnostic trouble codes. We can also do a emissions readiness check. So if you live in a state or a county that does yearly emissions testing, you can actually check the emissions readiness monitors of the vehicle to make sure everything is set before you go in to have your test done, so you don't waste some time to have them check that for you. We do have some control over some lighting options. We can keep your fog beams on with your high beams. We can enable a dark mode, which keeps all the lights off in the interior when you open and close the door. We can make some adjustments with the headlight switch and our daytime running lights. And then we do have a remote start duration, so you can change how long the truck will idle when you remote start it. The other thing to note in the app itself is up here on the left, the hamburger menu. If you'll select that, it'll show you your account with your update agent. It also shows you all of your device info, what app version you're on, calibration that's in the module itself, and then you can also check for updates at any time right here. And then there's a couple of other links that we can link right to our website. And then we've got our customer service information down here below. So that kind of gives you the quick walkthrough of the app. It's super easy to walk through. Way you need to. Again, you'll be able to tap into all that extra horsepower with that Ecoboost on the 3.5 liter. We're adding about 65 horsepower, and that's to the wheels, and about 90 foot-pound of torque. It's enough that you are absolutely going to feel it. It completely changes the way these trucks drive. Takes away that throttle lag that Ford's built into the pedal, and then that added power and torque is crazy through the mid-range. So if you're daily driving or even towing, I mean, it's an improvement you'll definitely feel. So the last step of this install, again, is we're just gonna tuck that Pulsar XT module up inside that kick panel on this truck so that it's housed safely. And then we'll use our zip ties to tuck all this wiring up out of the way so it's nice and tight. But if you have questions, you can obviously get with our tech support. You can reach out to our social media pages. We do have some YouTube videos with some information about this product, but we really look forward to hearing your feedback on the Pulsar XT. And make sure you leave some feedback on our website. If you share it on social media, make sure you tag us in it. We always love to see anything coming from our end users in the field. With that, we'll wrap up the install and hope you enjoy it.